To understand human intimacy, we have to look closely at the body's actual mechanics. The human anorectal region is a complex network of muscles and nerve endings that has been a part of human sexual expression for centuries. Millions of people across all sexual orientations practice anal sex today, yet the act remains heavily shrouded in taboo and myth. Practicing this safely involves navigating both biological reality and a history of ideological interference that has shaped our understanding of our own anatomy. We have to ask how an act integrated into the ancient world became so heavily condemned, and what modern clinical science actually tells us about its practice. In ancient Mesopotamia, Greece, and Rome, anal intercourse was a documented part of daily life. It appeared in literature and art without the weight of modern moral judgment. This 4,000-year-old clay plaque from Mesopotamia provides physical evidence that these societies utilized rear entry and anal sex as practical, everyday methods of contraception. Academic documentation of the Moche civilization in Peru reveals thousands of ceramic vessels depicting sexual acts. In these artifacts, anal sex is the most frequently represented form of intimacy. Greco-Roman societies organized these acts by social hierarchy. They categorized participants based on who held the dominant active role versus the receptive passive role, regardless of biological gender. For these early civilizations, the act was a practical tool for reproduction control and social structure, entirely detached from later concepts of moral deviance. That social integration ended during the medieval era. At the Council of Nablus in 1120 CE, religious and secular leaders legally defined non-procreative sex as sodomy, making it a crime punishable by death. By the 19th century, authority over sexual behavior began shifting from the church to the medical community. The underlying cultural bias against the act remained entirely intact. In 1886, the German psychiatrist Richard von Krafft-Ebing published Psychopathia Sexualis, a text that would define the clinical view of sex for decades. Krafft-Ebing's framework officially reclassified anal sex. What was once condemned as a religious sin was now categorized as a psychiatric disease and a sign of biological degeneration. For nearly a millennium, an alliance of religious laws and early psychiatry successfully categorized a basic function of human anatomy as a biological and moral deviance. Practicing this safely requires moving past these historical labels to examine the explicit biological mechanics of the body. The anal canal is governed by two sphincter muscles. While the internal sphincter operates involuntarily, the external muscle is under your control. Its voluntary relaxation is a requirement for safe penetration. Unlike the multi-layered tissue of the vagina, the rectum is lined with a thin, single-layer epithelium. This makes the mucosal wall highly fragile and susceptible to microtears. Because the anus does not self-lubricate, applying a generous amount of synthetic lubricant is a medical necessity to prevent tissue damage. When these safety requirements are met, the area becomes highly responsive. A dense network of nerve endings, including the inferior rectal nerve and the A-spot, surrounds the canal, creating a potent center for physical sensation. Pain and injury result from ignoring these specific anatomical boundaries, rather than being an inevitable part of the act itself. That tissue fragility creates realistic health risks. The delicate rectal lining makes it easier for infections to enter the bloodstream during unprotected contact. Those risks are mitigated through evidence-based harm reduction. Using protective barriers and ample lubrication directly prevents the tissue damage that allows for viral transmission. Replacing historical myths with clinical evidence has a direct physical benefit. When practitioners understand how their anatomy actually works, their anxiety drops, which allows the sphincter muscles to relax. Once you strip away medieval laws and 19th century psychiatric labels, what remains is a biologically supported pathway for physical intimacy. Replacing historical myths with clinical evidence removes the psychological barriers that cause physical tension, allowing for an experience defined by anatomy rather than inherited shame.